Boom.
Hey,
What up?
what's up?
Chilling. You look all fresh and clean. Look like you just came out the shower.
Really?
Yeah. I got to make a
Do I
quick
look dirty and dusty?
See, every time I give you a compliment, you got to back end it with some like it's coming
I mean,
sideways or something.
would I be an attitudey black woman from Miami if I did not do that?
That part. That's why we call the show that part, right? Quick disclaimer. I am sick, y'all. So
Mm,
if I start coughing and all that kind of stuff, please forgive me. But we working through. I figured if I had to go to work today, I'm definitely doing my podcast today. So,
I appreciate that.
but
I'm
it's
sorry you
kind
don't
of
feel
cool.
good, friend.
It kind of worked to the favor though because of how we doing the podcast today. You want to explain how we doing the podcast today?
Oh, yeah, definitely. First of all, I hope you feel better soon and, you get
Thank
your
you.
little Z pack and your vitamin C and all of that stuff infused.
Thank
But
you.
you don't sound too bad, so that's good.
Yeah. No, it's good for right now. So I'm gonna roll with it.
Yeah. But to your point, today we have our interview with the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, Miss Nikki Freed. And this
Hmm.
one is a special one because we had some scheduling conflicts. So she's not with us live. So we pre-recorded it on Monday and you guys will see that conversation. However, my text messages and comments was blowing up and people was like, ask her this, ask her that. The good thing about it is a lot of the questions that people were asking us to ask tonight.
Hmm.
Is were asked during our interview. And the good thing was she was really gracious and there was, she said that she would come back on the show. So if there are some things that you feel like y'all want us to ask, we'll definitely have a follow-up conversation um in the future with her. So I'm really excited about it, and I feel like she shed a lot of light on things. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
will feel
she
it.
was great. She was gracious with her time too, which I
Hmm.
appreciated. She kind of went out. She kind of went for my boy, but I'll let everybody pick
Yeah,
that apart in the aftermath.
and here's the tea though, and honestly, from the comments that I got today, because we have really done all of our interviews live this season, and people are liking that. And
Oh,
also too, I've
good.
been seeing trends about the
Mhm.
live, and people are liking that now, especially from trusted voices where they get their information.
Yeah.
We may just have to put down, unless it's Beyonce, we may
Hmm.
have to say, as we keep growing the platform, you got to come on live, because the people want that engagement. They want to be able to
Yeah.
feel like they're getting that
In
that
real
um
time, right?
that real
Hmm.
time, and that chance to interact with people that sometimes feel evasive or elusive, for to them. So definitely, that's something to think about in the future. But because of her schedule and ours, we were like, this is an important conversation. Let's
Yep.
do it when it makes sense for everyone. So we have a pre-recorded interview for you guys. But we're gonna be with y'all in the comment section. We're gonna make sure y'all comments are shown live. So it's still a live-esque, situation like what we did with
For
DL
sure.
Hughley.
Yep.
So y'all stay with us, and we're gonna come back on afterward for a live conversation to recap.
AKA the aftermath. Boosh.
Aftermath.
Gotta have a sound effect when you say something like a word like aftermath.
We do. I wish we had some sound
Boosh.
effects. We need an applause and
I
that
have some
and a
here.
mic drop.
Can you hear this? Oh no, I don't have it up. I'm such an idiot. You hear that? Can you hear that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I can hear.
All right, so I got sound effects for that
I
ass.
forgot who I was talking to. Mr. Radio himself. Mr. Of course you have sound effects.
Oh man. But let's get things rolling. I want to introduce myself. My name is Papa Keith, also known as Keith Walcott, founder of Just Vote Period. We activate our young folks and get them involved with the voting process, register people to vote at cool events like festivals and brunches and parties and stuff like that. We are the cool cats that are trying to make a difference in the community. Most definitely. And of course, I'm also an on air personality on 1035 The Beat, Miami's real hip hop station, from 2 to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Definitely tap in with your boy. And I have a special segment that I want to promote on my show that I know, Janae, you would love. It's called Papa Keith's Ladies Pick R&B Mix. From 2:50 every day, I play nothing but R&B classics for like 20 minutes. You'll absolutely love it. So make sure you tap in if you love R&B as much as I do. Tap into that. And my
Wait,
amazing
wait. How do we submit our R&B?
Oh, you could text me. You could text me.
Is it like a people's choice? Like we tell you what we want to hear, or is it just for the ladies?
It's just for the ladies.
Oh, so it's
So
not.
I curated. I put it together.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
But classics like joints you won't normally hear. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, all
What day
R
you
and B
doing that? What day?
every day.
Every day?
Every day at
At what
2:50.
time?
At
2:50.
2:50. Yeah.
Okay, I
So
got it.
if you're not at a terrestrial radio, you can download the iHeart Radio app and tap in with that. 20 minutes, bangers, 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 singing in your feelings. Like for instance, today I played what is it called? Love and War. Um,
Tamar?
yeah, but Tamar. Like
Yes, I love
joints
that
like that.
song.
Like you won't
Yes.
normally hear that on the beat. You know what I'm saying? So like
Mhm.
joints like that. So make sure y'all tap in with your boy, my amazing, lovely, and beautiful co-host, the one and only Janae Tate. She is the owner, CEO, publisher of High Low News, our hyper local news here in South Florida. The only way I get my news. And to her point, she's a trusted source. And that's why I gravitated towards it, not just because I know her, but because it comes right in my inbox or on my Instagram. It's easily digested. It's like written for me in a way where I feel comfortable and understand it. And it's talking about the things that actually matter to me and not the fluff. And I don't have to dig through stuff. It everything is everything that matters to me. So she's done a wonderful job. I've watched it go from a little baby to blossom into something so huge and in high demand now. So everybody tap in. If you're not familiar with it, please make sure that you tap in with High Low News. You know what I mean?
No, thank you. I always love a shout out and a drop from you. It just feels so official when you say it. I'm like, who is he talking about? Is he talking about me?
It's authentic. It's authentic. You know?
No, I appreciate that so much. And before we get into the interview, I want us to do it at the top and at the in the aftermath. But just want to promo our August 6th show is going to be live in front of a studio audience at Duce Lounge in Pembroke Pines, and you guys do not want to miss it. First of all,
Yeah.
Derica,
Yeah. Our show
Derica,
producer don't play.
our Derica's just. I'm sorry because
Yeah.
I didn't even know she had this. So that's why it just took me off. Like, but this is why we hired her because she is
Right.
that girl. So it's August 6th at Duce Lounge in Pembroke Pines. It's the finale episode. Come, it's a free event. There'll be, you can order food and drinks there at the restaurant, but we're gonna have an amazing conversation. And like we said, we also talk about not only politics but social issues and things that matter to the culture. And this one is for the culture for sure. We're going to be talking about the state of the Miami music industry, and we have some heavy hitters. We still have
Yes.
our guest list pending on the way, so we'll be dropping that soon. But just wanted to put that plug out there at the top of the show for whoever is joining us because we gotta let y'all know. Like y'all, once we put that registration link up, y'all want to get y'all tickets ASAP because this one definitely is gonna sell out, like for
Yes,
sure.
and you're invited. This is an opportunity to watch us do the show live, meet with us if you don't already know us or get to see us often and connect with us and really be a part of this show, right? Because you're a part of this show right now, just watching, but to be in the building, in the room with us, and then the celebrities that we're gonna have in there that we're gonna be talking to, it's gonna be such a dynamic event. And the food at Duce Lounge in Pembroke Pines is really good. It's a
Mhm.
Haitian cuisine. They got like conch, they got like whole fish. They got like goat. They got you name it, man. Like the food is really, really delicious. If my daughter Kiara says the food is on point, then it's on point. Shout out to Kiara, Alden, Isis, all my kids tapped in. Jasmine, my mom,
I see them in the
Crystal.
chat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shout out to your mom tapped in.
And my auntie as well and cousin Tammy.
There you go. We appreciate you all. We know they're gonna be there.
Definitely for sure. So, PK, do you want to get into the situation and lead us in?
Oh, absolutely. So, listen, this was really cool. We really wanted to bring some heavy hitters this series, and we have. And this young lady's a heavy hitter. I'm actually gonna do the intro once we introduce the piece. So I'm not gonna get into the intro now, but just
Mhm.
giving some insight on how important this is. Like, um, us as Democrats, we are concerned about the state of Democrats. It seems like things are just kind of like falling apart, like the party is in disarray. And if you're a Democrat as well, you're probably feeling like, what's next? What's going on? Who's next? So we tapped in, we asked those questions from the leader of the Democratic Party in the state of Florida, and we hope that we hit the right questions for you. I believe we did. Janae nailed it. you know, we hit with some serious questions. We didn't back down, and she was very open and honest, in our opinion, with most of the questions that we asked. So this should be a very, very good interview and give you some kind of understanding of the direction of the Democratic Party, especially with a gubernatorial race that's going to be coming up next year. It's going to be very important, right? DeSantis is out. Who's going to be next? These are
Mhm.
decisions that we have to make. And that's why we're doing this, to kind of pre-educate you on those things. And before we bring her on next series, we're going to actually have some of the candidates that are running for governor
Man.
when we come back second week in September. So we are really getting you ready a year before election to really tap in with people who already put themselves out there to run for that gubernatorial race and get to know them, get to ask them some questions and tap in with them. And so get ready for all of that, man. We're just getting bigger and bigger and better with this podcast space that we in. And I couldn't ask for a better person to do it with, Janae.
Same here. I'm enjoying this ride with you and y'all. Like what PK said, that's what it is. Y'all make sure y'all keep it locked.
All right, let's do it. Today on the show, we are joined by a familiar name in Florida politics, Nikki Fried, who earlier this year was reelected as the chair of the Florida Democratic Party. Since first taking over in 2023, she focused on rebuilding the party after some tough losses, putting energy into local races, grassroots organizing, and making the party more connected to everyday Floridians. Before that, she made history as Florida's agricultural commissioner, the only statewide elected Democrat at the time, the first woman ever to hold that office. We're catching up with her to talk to her about what's next for Florida Democrats, the 2026 election, and how the plans for the party connect to young, diverse voters across the state. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Chairwoman Nikki Free.
Hey!
Thank you for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to do it.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
Cool.
So you ready to get this party started?
All
right.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm Janae, Hilo News, so I have a local question. I want to kick things off talking about the Miami-Dade Democratic Party and the efforts that's being done there, especially after some members of the party sued the DeSantis administration to gain access to Alligator Alcatraz. Can you give us an update on that and just any updates regarding the Miami-Dade Democratic Party?
Yeah, for first of all of us are from Miami, so 305s in the house, and so this is personal to all of us to make sure that that we're getting back into a party situation where we're talking to voters all year round. And what really happened, since I don't even know how long ago, that we get into this like cycle where you get somebody elected, you don't see them or hear from them for a year and a half. They do their work, whether it's at Tallahassee, Washington, D.C., City Hall, and then they come knocking on your door, right before elections and say, hi, can I count on your vote again? And the reality is, like, that doesn't build trust. That doesn't build trust in community. That doesn't build trust in relationship building. And so we really have kind of dug in, not just in Miami-Dade, but across the entire state, saying we've got to be doing this differently. We've got to be showing up year round, listening to the voters of our very diverse communities and across the entire state. And so we really have kind of like shredded all of past programming and past operations and said, we got to go back to the basics. We got to have year-round, statewide organizing with community leaders on the ground, knocking on doors, having phone calls, going to community events. And that helps to build back the party because you're having more diverse voices into the conversation. We're listening more to the actual issues that are happening on the ground. And it gives us an opportunity to make sure also we're holding our electeds accountable. My job isn't to give flowers to every Democrat because they've got a D next to their name. Our job is to also be holding them accountable to make them better electeds. And so we have every month, we have an all electeds call trying to go through the programs that the party is doing, hear from them, what's going on, and trying to really rebuild the state. We launched what's called the Pendulum Project, which is, again, the pendulum trying to swing back into the left direction. I keep saying to the right direction, but to the left, and making sure that we're doing this year round statewide, getting those resources onto the ground, boots on the ground, and making sure that we're moving forward. And the other thing that's different is that we are supporting our electeds in a more visible way that are doing good things. And you're asking, Janae, about that atrocious internment camp. I'm trying to always convey what words we're using for that thing that they have built with our taxpayer dollars, with no accountability, with no transparency, no oversight. I think that the total now is $250 million up to $450 million. That's our dollars that's being used to build this. And one of the other problems that we saw is that our elected Democrats tried to show up, which as an elected official, you have a right per Florida statutes, per congressional statutes, to visit unannounced these detention centers to make sure, not just federal detention centers, state prisons, county jails, to make sure that there's oversight, that there is humane conditions for the people that are residing in those facilities. And so some of our elected officials from the House and the Senate did show up, and you got a whole bunch from Miami-Dade County that have filed that lawsuit. And so now we're just waiting for a hearing date for our hearing, and of course the state to respond to the fact that they were not given access. They did go tour them, but it was a arranged tour. So God only knows what type of conditions. They cleaned up and moved everything aside, and unfortunately didn't even get to see access to the entire facility. but it's a disaster on every single front.
Absolutely. I know there's a lot of different things that you already just mentioned that need to be fixed and that you're working on. But since being, reelected to the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, what are some of the main things that you want to try to focus on or approach as you are rebuilding the party's infrastructure?
Yep. One is, again, that year-round organizing. That is essential. There's 3 other states that do this year-round. It's Wisconsin, Michigan, and North Carolina. And what do all 3 of those states have in common? A Democratic governor, because they understand in order for us to be able to build back power, the power's from the people. And if you're not talking to them year round, you're just going into a corrupt political system that continues to get the same results. So one is getting to that year round. And when you get to that year round, you're building back trust. And when you build back trust, people want to join the party. And so then it helps with voter registration, voter engagement, and also recruiting candidates that are, diverse on their backgrounds, diverse on their ideology. We are a big tent. And so it's okay to not everybody agrees on every issue, but making sure that they're coming from their communities. And so when we build a year-round statewide field program, voter registration program, and engagement into our communities, that's how we're building it better. And the other thing that we have done is I get appointments. And so I've got 4 vice chair appointments that are really focused on a lot of key areas inside of the party. And the one is Black Voices. So I've appointed Curtis Johnson, who is up a little bit further north of the Tri-County. He's an elected official there. He also is a member of the D9. And is also a FAMU alumni. And he has been putting together a task force where we're trying to get, Black voices that are not from the Democratic Party per se. We're looking for voices from local businesses, from local communities, people that have felt that they are not being heard from the Democratic Party. We want to truly create a diverse system inside. We have one for Hispanic voices, we have one for Haitian voices, and we have one that is solely dedicated to revitalizing our local parties, because leadership needs to happen at the state level as well as the local level. So that's how we're kind of starting to build back the infrastructure here. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take all of us understanding that we've got a role in this moment. Whether you like phone banking, whether you like going to community events, whether you like organizing community events, we're also leaning in a lot on diverse media, like being on here today and working with BOMA. Important, again, to meet people where they are, not forcing people to come to us, going to where people are getting their media from, people where they're getting their leadership from at the local level, going back into our religious organizations. It's going to take all of us finding our spaces in this moment and making all of us better, because we are the Democratic Party. It's not me, not our elected officials. It's the people who have a D next to their name who want us to be better and to stand up programming that makes sure that they are being listened to.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Nikki, just to kind of I guess piggyback or follow up on that question, with the 2022 midterm and the 2024 election, the Democratic Party took a lot of losses. And right now, the messaging and the imaging of the party is, no offense, it's like the losing party right now. What are you guys doing to change that messaging? Because you see different elected officials like Senator Pizzo leaving from the party. I just saw a story about a rep out of Tampa leaving the party. So what are you guys doing to build up on the messaging that you guys are winners? This is the party that you need to be a part of, because we all know, of course, we know about policy and why we need to be voting Democratic, if that's what you believe in, but it's people also too see the optics, and that's a big thing. And so I just feel like the Democratic Party hasn't been, poppin'-ish. Y'all do a lot of things, but y'all don't put it out there to show that you are winning in the strides that you do make. So what are you guys doing in that regard to show y'all need to stay with us?
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. You always want to be on the winning team. I mean, or you're like the underdogs. One way or the other, there's emotion to it. It's the same thing, like the energy that goes into the fourth quarter of a game. When there's energy coming there, and who walks into the fourth quarter with that energy is who ultimately will win the game. And so we have been, trying to up our media outlets, going to locations, because the frustration that we had is last year in 2024. Myself and the party had $1.5 billion of earned media in the state, across the country. That means coming on to shows, going on to to national networks, being in every single newspaper article. And then people at the end of the campaign was like, "What's your all's message?" And it like made me wanted to like lose my mind, but it also made me want to step back and say, okay, our message isn't getting to the right messages, to the right people. So how do we break through on that? Because we had some tremendous wins. I can't talk about 22 because 22 was an absolute disaster for Florida Democrats. We lost by 19 points. We had the lowest turnout of that we've had ever in the state of Florida for Democrats. I think it was roughly 52%. We lost down ballot candidates, congressional. We lost House. We lost Senate. And then we gave basically complete power over to the Republican Party with no checks and balances. Walking into 2023 was the first time in Florida history that we are in a super minority in both chambers and no statewide elected Democrat. And so it means that it is harder for us to communicate because the media goes to where the power brokers are. They write the stories about anything the Republicans do. And so it is harder for us to break through on that media because we've had some great wins in 23 and 24. We got Daniela Levine Cava reelected, in the primary and during the August elections last year, not even in the general. We flipped city and county commission seats all across the state of Florida. We pulled a win for Donna Deegan up in Jacksonville for the first time. A female's been elected as mayor of Jacksonville, and the first time a Democrat in almost 20 years. And then you move forward even to this year, that you had two special elections in congressional districts 1 and 6 that were Trump strongholds, 34 points wins in CD1 and 30 points in CD6. And we moved the needle almost 22 points in both of those elections. And where they weren't wins, but it shows that when our candidates are talking about the core issues, which was cuts to Social Security, cuts to Medicare, cuts to Medicaid, our VAs, and of course, the number one issue for most of Floridians is property insurance and the lack of affordability here in our state. And so we saw when we were very message focused, we were able to win. And so you're right. The optics are, across the state is that we lose. But the reality is we're making progress. From 2022, we increased our turnout in 24 by 25%. And granted, it was a presidential, and so those always come out. But we increased our turnout from 2020 to 3 percentage points. So again, it's progress. And it's continuously showing up. In my world, again, I'm a Florida Gator, so sorry for everybody who's not, who do this or the Rattlers. But I'm a Gator through and through, and so our motto there is we don't back down, and that energy carries me and the party that we have to continue fighting because, Janae, to your point, we know that the policies are better for the American people and for Floridians. I mean, we just saw a story that popped earlier today that they're taking public dollars once again from the federal government and they're giving into vouchers. So millionaires and billionaires can get more offsets for their own private schools and religious schools. We know that hurts most Floridians who are in the public education system. As a proud graduate of Palmetto, I know how important it is our public education system is strong. We know that because of the beautiful, excuse my French, bullshit bill, that the cost of living is going to continue to increase. Healthcare costs are going to be increased. Over 2 million Floridians are going to get cut on access to healthcare. We know that they're hurting our after-school programs, our SNAP benefits, our feeding programs. The list goes on and on and on. And so it is democratic policies that give people opportunity for success. And so what we got to get ourselves elected. And so that's what I do every day, continue having that energy, continue showing up in spaces, showing our positivity, showing our wins, and making sure that we're building a party that is reflective of those wins, but not resting on our laurels and continue to making progress in our communities. It's not going to happen overnight, but we need people to know, don't give up on us. We're not giving up on you. Don't give up on us and help us rebuild this party.
Thank you. Janae, can I take this next one?
Yeah.
All right. So have any potential Democratic candidates for governor or key statewide races already expressed interest or are being recruited? We know that next year, that's going to be a huge race. We only seen like a few people who have jumped out so far. Can you give us an update or how you see the landscape forming for that gubernatorial race?
Sure. So right now in the governor's race, we have David Jolly, who has entered the race. And full disclosure, as chair, I can't get involved in primaries, so I can only give you my assessment from the things that I am hearing on the ground. That David was, as we know, a member of Congress as a Republican. He has been independent for the last few years and now has moved over to the Democratic space. So what David is doing, from what my observations are, is he's crisscrossing the state. He's having those hard conversations that he's going to have to overcome. And I've been frank with him, and I've been frank with a lot of people in our diverse communities, is that, grill him on issues, grill him on what he plans on doing on day one. Make sure he understands our issues, because he hasn't been in the Democratic spaces. He doesn't have relationships, deep-seated relationships with leaders in our minority communities, with our unions, with a lot of our elected officials that have been here for many years. And so he's going to have to do that type of work on the ground. And from whatever I'm hearing, he's doing that. But there's still concerns, and as somebody who ran against Charlie Crist in 2022, people are concerned that here we are, with another Republican to independent to Democrat to a white male doing all of that. And what does that say about us? So my job as chair is I crisscross the entire state, having conversations with people to hear what people are saying on the ground. If there is excitement behind the current candidates, or if I got to keep doing my work and keep looking for new candidates to come into the arena to represent the base, to represent ideals that really transcend partisan politics. Because at the end of the day, I don't care how great you are. If we don't have a strong party, and if we don't have the independents with us, we can't win. And they can't win either. There's not enough Republicans to win a full sweep. Everybody's got to make sure that they are talking to also the independents, which consists of 1/3 of our state right now. And even to those Republicans. I talk to Republicans all day long who are so upset with this MAGA moves that are so far away from the true conservatism that used to be the Republican Party, the Reagan economics, even on immigration. The Republican Party used to have very different positions. And so we have to create candidates or candidates have to truly understand that if they're going to build a coalition, they got to do the work on the ground. So that's the current state of the Democratic primary field. I do believe there's probably others that are kind of going through the motions too, having these hard conversations, because running statewide is not easy. Running statewide, being away from family, being away from friends, being away from turning off your cell phone on a Saturday or Sunday does not exist when you are running statewide. And building a coalition. So if you're going to get into this arena, you got to be strong on who you are as a person and a leader, but we'd be willing to have those tough conversations and being in those spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I remember earlier in the year, a few names that popped up, including Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Carver, even Chevron Jones. And it's been kind of like quiet, and we're kind of, I guess, anxious to see how it's going to really play out with only 2 candidates, one on the Republican end and one on the Democratic end has actually jumped out of the race. And of course, the independents now, possibly Pizzo, wanting to jump out there on that end of things. I think it's going to be a very interesting, race, and we need to be informed and prepared for it.
And that's my job, is to crisscross the state and to be building that, and I've said this too, no matter how great a candidate is, no matter if it's in Florida, if in South Carolina, no matter where, if we aren't building a coalition and a strong state party. I mean, look at Jamie Harrison. When he ran for the US Senate in South Carolina, he raised something like $150 million. But South Carolina, the infrastructure in South Carolina Democratic Party wasn't strong enough to support. And I think that we also have seen that time and time again here, even in Florida, that the infrastructure wasn't ready for Andrew, wasn't ready for us to truly win, when there should have been a strong blue wave in 2018, which is what we're anticipating in 2026, is a strong blue wave across the state and across the country. But we as the party have to be ready for the ground game. I always say this consistently, is that the job of the party is to do the work year round and to make sure that we're building those coalitions, and the candidates come in, and we've hopefully taken enough work or stress off of candidates that they don't have to worry about the organizing on the ground, because we've already been doing it. They are talking about the messaging, their policies, what they're going to do when they get elected, and so then it becomes a marriage at that point. But it is us doing the work year round to get us ready for those candidates, whether it's coming through after an August primary, or even if there's no primary, that we're already working in conjunction with those candidates.
Nikki, with your experience, statewide, have you ever thought about putting your hat into it? Because, just in my opinion, even just listening to you now and the direction and just you actually having that level of experience, I think would make you a good candidate.
And I appreciate that. And look, I love our state. I love the people that live in our state. There's probably no one who is a bigger policy wonk than I am on every aspect. I know where every Republican body is buried. I do. But like what I just said, that without a strong party infrastructure, no Democrat can get elected statewide. And so while my heart will always want to be governor, because I know all the incredible things that I want to get accomplished and the things that need to get accomplished for the people of our state, I also fundamentally believe that if I was to leave now and to run statewide, I don't think that the party would be ready for 26. And I can't jeopardize the possibility of getting a Democrat elected for my own self-serving political goals. It really is going to be about building this coalition and working together to get us across the finish line.
Got it.
Nikki, we talked a little bit about like voter apathy and like just people feeling just exhausted with this whole process, especially with the 24-hour news cycle. But I'm interested to know what the Democratic Party is doing to engage the Black vote and the Gen Z and millennial vote. And like some specifically, if you could give us any specific details or some specific examples of what you guys are doing, because the issue that I've had personally as a Democrat is like, I feel like I'm a part of a party that doesn't really address my needs. And that's something that I hear from people in my community, from my audience, barbershop talk, beauty shop talk. Like, it's like, yep. we're here. It's like, it's like we've been invited to a party, but nothing on the menu is what I'm interested in eating. But I'm here because, the music is good. Like, it's a vibe, but you're not feeding me, it's like, so I'm trying to figure out, like, because, the one of the largest voting bodies in Florida is non-party affiliate. Like, it's like, people are just like, I don't give a F either way. And I feel like that's also too a part of the issue with the Dems, and why some of the races haven't been won. So I'm interested to know, because like you said, it's a big tent, but I also feel like there has to be customized messaging for each of those groups within the Democratic Party. And so just for those, the black vote, Gen Z or millennial vote, what are you guys doing to like, and what are the plans to engage those voters?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the 24-hour news cycle is exhausting. It is exhausting and you're going to laugh. So I have a really good friend in Atlanta who, and this is not to answer your question, but I will get there, she's in the weather, and she is she has the national weather channel. And so my fiance comes and says, Nikki, do you think that Stephanie, when she comes home, do you think she still talks about the weather with her family? And so we call it the weather. So I have to stop talking politics at home because it is just so much and so exhausting and just so cumbersome. Because there's just so much. And so, yes, I mean, part of what we are trying to do, it is reach below and out. And so when I first came in, understanding and recognizing that this younger generation is, and look, and let's also be frank, it's not just this generation. Younger generations always are the forefront of progress. Like look at who was pushing the Civil Rights Act and who was pushing suffrage and Dr. King's marches. You see youth involved in all of the progressive movements in our time. And if we are not connecting to them and feeling like they're part of us, then we're missing the mark. And so we came in, and one of the first things I did was I created a youth council. And in that way, we had youth leaders from all walks of life that were involved in every aspect of our youth organizing movements from all different parts of our state come together, where we would meet monthly, talk about the issues, try to make sure that we're not missing the newest of platforms and what is the newest trends on TikTok, and that we are consistently getting some of the feedback from the younger generation. And to the point where I had appointments into any of my committees, I made sure that there was diverse youth leadership on all of my committees, on my staff. I think that I'm the second oldest of my staff. Everybody's 30 and under. Again, trying to make sure that we're consistently leaning in to all of the different apparatuses of the younger generation, making sure we're on social media platforms, creating different aspects. When it comes specifically to the Black voice, and you're absolutely right, and I've had this conversation too for a couple of years, is making sure that there's representation inside of the party, making sure that as I'm again appointing people to, whether it's my vice chairs, whether it is different types of leadership inside the party, that I'm getting those diverse voices at the table. Also created a working group that Curtis oversees. I was talking earlier about my vice chair appointment that Curtis oversees on those Black voices, and making sure that we're talking about issues that are in the forefront. And I want to go through also a very heart-filled conversation that I had with a member of the Circle of Brotherhood at the MLK parade earlier part of this year. And he came up to me, and I've told him that I repeat this story all the time. And he said, Ms. Freed, and I've known him for years too, he goes, Ms. Freed, what the Democratic Party was spewing wasn't working for us. Whether it was an atrocious border policy, and I'm always the forefront saying that I don't know what Biden's border policy was for 4 years. And let's be also very frank about that we all want to make sure that we're securing the border. Why is that important? Because if people come in, they drain resources off of areas where we know in Miami-Dade, we know a lot of people come in into some of these cities, to whether it's for work or for whatever purposes, but they drain opportunities for a lot of the people that call Miami and Florida home. Two is that we continue to have economic policies that don't work, that just don't work. And we have to have these honest conversations that we're still operating over the old FDR New Deal, when in the reality is that doesn't work for a lot of people. And we as Democrats got to be willing to have the conversations of break the system, which is what got people to vote for Donald Trump. Is the system is corrupt, the system is not transparent. You consistently see, people that are elected into Congress flying up on private planes and nice suits and go out for nice dinners, and you can't afford your rent. You can't afford your health care, your community. There are still so many things that are not working in so many of our communities. And we got to be willing to have those conversations on policies that give people opportunity to get lifted up. No one wants handouts. And that for so long, Democrats have been doing that. And that doesn't work. And I think that what we're trying to do is take a step back, do a lot of self-evaluation of trying to come up with policies that are going to lift people up, that are going into our communities that are investing in people, to make sure that they have opportunities for small businesses, that they're getting support on the ground. And so those are the conversations that we're trying to have here in Florida. And also the reality is that Florida is very different than the rest of the country. That messaging from the South does not work. I mean, messaging from the North cannot come to the South. That is not how we talk differently down here. We drink differently down here. Football is a religion for us in the South. And we've got to be working on our own messaging down here and making sure that when we're going there, that it's not us pushing the messaging, that the messaging is coming from the people, and that we are absorbing that and making sure that when we're having these conversations, that there is something for everybody on the menu. We've missed the ball on a lot of ways, but the number one issue for Floridians is affordability. It's just flat out affordability. When you've got a household that is working in 2 jobs and they continue seeing their gas going up and their healthcare costs going up, everyday food, and we saw last week Walmart is increasing all of their costs. We're seeing it in other types of DuPont put out a statement last week that they're increasing all of their whether it's air conditioning or it's cleaning supplies, all going up 25%. And that's because of tariffs. And it has to be Democrats that are finding solutions, not just screaming about it, but actually finding solutions that are talking to the people, that we continue to build back the trust that we are the ones who are looking out for the people.
Nikki, to the point you just made about, Florida being so different from other places, from the North specifically, what are one of the misconceptions about Florida politics you wish national Democrats understood better?
How long is the show? I mean, there's a lot, from economic policies. And the reality is like our minorities that build up the infrastructure here in our state. You look back at our minority communities, at the end of the day, are conservative. Between, Black churches and Hispanic churches that are more, Catholic, that there is more conservatism in our minority communities. And you can't just talk these social issues. The social issues don't work down here, because at the end of the day, we have always in Florida, and I say this too, we've always been kind of this, independent streak, libertarian, as you will. You form your communities, you go into your communities, and you're happy there. You want to live on Key Biscayne, great. You find your people on Key Biscayne. You want to live in Daytona. You want to live in the Panhandle. You found your communities. And what people don't understand in the North is that we're happy not all being uniform. We're happy with the fact that our communities are based around the people that live there. But I also think that there's a real conversation about guns too. That gun conversation in the South is very different than the gun conversation across the rest of the United States. Economic policies are different in the South than they are in the North. But I think that at the end of the day, it is the social policies that, we really saw the national narrative in 2024. While we know that Kamala Harris was talking a lot about the economy and the unaffordability of our nation, she got tagged with a lot of the social issues that aren't how we build a coalition here in Florida. And we got to go back down to the grassroots of the kitchen table conversations, of the general unaffordability of our state, and us finding solutions.
Nikki, I have a question. As you talked about, like, just different progress and things that the Florida Democratic Party wants to make. We recently had Billy Corbin on the show. We've interviewed Senator Chevron Jones. We've interviewed the former Miami-Dade chair, Robert Dempster. It seemed like there was a little bit of a shakeup there with the Democratic Party. I do remember when Robert was the chair that there was progress being made. I remember being engaged with the Miami-Dade Young Democrats. And so what happened there? Like, your name has been thrown around in all of those interviews. So I just want to give you a chance to speak to what happened with Robert not being there, then Billy running, then Chevron being appointed, and then Chevron stepping down. Like, what's happening? Because also too, for Miami-Dade County to be like, we're one of the largest counties and can have like a large Democratic turnout and actually help shift the the blue wave in Florida. But it seems like there just hasn't been cohesiveness and consistency within this market. What's going on, and can you speak to what happened with all of the different changes with those different
Yeah. And look, I certainly don't want to disparage anybody because that's not my MO. But when I came in and saw what had happened in 22, because remember, I'm coming off of a 22 complete disaster, where we lost just basically every aspect, low turnout in Miami-Dade County. It just wasn't, it was trending always in the wrong direction. It has been trending in the wrong direction for the last few cycles. And so when I sat down with Robert and had talk to me, tell me what programming is happening. What are you doing on voter registration? What are you doing on engagement? What is happening at that time? We had, some ballot initiatives that were trying to get signatures, one being, right for reproductive health care. And there was a lack of program. And when Robert said back to me, we don't need to do more voter registration, we still have 100,000 more Democrats here in Miami-Dade County, that is an unacceptable answer, because we should be consistently doing voter registration, because the voter registration means engagement at the doors, conversations at the doors. And I said, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate, Robert. If you're not going to do voter registration, then what's the plan? And then he said, it's just engagement for higher turnout. I said, okay, well, what's the plan on that? And June passed, July passed, August passed, September passed, October passed, and I still had no plan. And that was really frustrating when I'm trying to rebuild this party based on grassroots and based on programming and voter registration and general engagement. And then there was a tremendous amount of infighting that just was tearing it down. So even if, Robert had programming that was planned or intended to be planned, there was just such infighting that nothing was getting accomplished. And so, we had gone through, there was a judicial hearing on the fact that, that there had not been quorum, that there had been all these different steps in order to endorse a candidate, which is part of not only Miami-Dade, but state bylaws that have to be accomplished in order for you to do an endorsement. And that wasn't done. It was pushed through. It was controversial. And I had at that point no other option but to seek a suspension and then removal of Robert. And then in that process, knowing that I needed quick leadership to come in and be ready to we didn't have time to waste. Would I have liked to have it been done in 2023? Yes, because the longer time for a leader to be able to build their program and to get established. But unfortunately, I was trying to give Robert an opportunity to see progress. And as I kept moving the benchmark, it just wasn't happening. And so then we had, election between, Chev and Billy had put his name into the hat for a split second. But at the end of the day, it was just Chev and a couple other people that ended up. And Chev came in and, did the best he could in a period of time. But like I'm doing, it takes some time to rebuild and to regain the trust and to get more people into the local party apparatus, because the strength of the Democratic Party is based on our volunteers. And so we've got to find a way to excite, to energize, and to give program, because if a volunteer shows up at a DEC meeting and they see this infighting, they're never coming back. And now we've lost potentially another volunteer. And so energizing our volunteer base is essential for the work that we're doing, and did not feel that the DEC at the time was really focusing on how to expand the DEC. It was focused on a very small internal fighting that was not moving the needle forward. And I just felt that there's too much at the stake to not putting in new leadership into there.
Thank you for, sharing your side of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I noticed something, and this was more on a personal level, how I noticed it. With the Kamala Harris race, it didn't seem like a lot of the dollars were flowing in South Florida. I don't know about the rest of Florida. You would know better than me, but at least in South Florida, it seemed like there were little to no dollars. And how I know that is that prior elections, I had a restaurant, I had a food truck, I had different things that a lot of people engaged with to kind of bring the audience out. They would have my food truck go to different locations. And so I just naturally learned, through that process. And then for this one, and you have to remember, it's how people view things, right? So if we're watching that Kamala Harris was able to raise $1 billion, it's a record.
2.5. 2.5. Oh, there's balloons going.
We need balloons for that number.
For real. I didn't even $2.5 billion. And we felt as though little to none of it came to South Florida, almost like they gave up on our state in terms of trying to flip it, which now caused a further eruption with the Miami-Dade County election. It was just like a tsunami that hit us. Can you speak to that?
Unfortunately, I can. Record numbers raised, 2.5 from the campaign, $2.5 billion, and the entire Democratic ecosystem raised $15 billion. And $15 billion. And what do we have as a country to show for that? Nothing. We didn't pick up an additional governor. We didn't pick up an additional U.S. senator. We lost seats. We're now in the we're in the minority in both the Senate and then the House, lost the White House, no money left behind on state parties infrastructure. And so, that's exactly what happened. And so in 2020, $300 million was spent in the state of Florida. $300 million. Now, granted, $100 million of that came in October. That was all used for media. That was Mike Bloomberg from New York had put in $100 million for media. I have zero idea of where and how that was spent, but $300 million came into Florida in 2020. And we were considered that year, and I find that out afterwards, that we were considered a sacrificial lamb state, that they were trying to spend just enough money in Florida to make sure that the Republicans were spending here so that we can get what was called the infamous blue wall, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which we did, in Illinois, which is but it was always blue. And so fast forward to 2022, where we had historic losses in Florida, and you move to 2024, and they spent less than $9 million here. Less than $9 million was spent in the state of Florida. I can't tell you how many times I yelled and screamed. I'm not a yeller. I'm not a screamer, but I was. And pushing for additional dollars here in Florida. And when the conversations were, well, we can't win, I said, well, we can't win if you don't invest. And I'm not even saying spend. I'm saying invest. I said, I am here. Here's a plan. I said, $10 million. Give me $10 million into the state coming to the party. My God, what I can do with that, on infrastructure build and community organizers and whatnot. They spent the less than $9 million. They spend on salaries for staff, because everybody had to have a coalition director. And so coalitions directors were out in force, had a couple of pop-up events here and there. And that was it. And so you're right, Papa Keith, the money wasn't here. And unfortunately, that put us even more behind, because the typical people like you and other organizers on the ground that are used to getting resources for their organizing on the ground, for the community door knockings, for those community programs, that money wasn't here. And so the arrows come to me like I spent it wrong. And the reality is I had no control even over those $9 million. That was all the Harris campaign. That very little resources came into the state. The only places where real resources came into was on the reproductive health care front. And that amendment received, some money. But again, I wasn't in charge of organizing that, or even the messaging, or where they spent their dollars. But that's where the money went. But it wasn't spent in our communities to build back power or infrastructure or the investments. And so, yeah, we lost a lot of trust in people because they just felt we weren't present. And so that's why, even more so now, for anybody who is listening to this, we need your help. We need our volunteers, because I can't guarantee you that that type of resources is coming back anytime in the near future. I am certainly making that argument that 40% of the national population has moved to the state, has moved to the South. Again, back to that Southern conversation, that if they don't start investing as a democratic ecosystem in the South, by the time we get to 2030 and redistricting, Florida alone is going to be picking up 4 more congressional seats and 4 more electoral votes. If we don't if we're not investing in the South, we're not going to take the presidency again in 2032. We're not going to take the House. We're not going to have a majority in the House for the foreseeable future. And we're going to be playing with 1 or 2 U.S. Senate seats across the country, and that's it. And so I am raising every type of alarm out there. And I keep going to the motto, God helps those that help themselves, and that we're going to have to be the ones who understand that it is not a slight from from Florida Democrats, which means that we have to all be part of the solution to get us back to be raising the concerns, but also making sure that we are showing that we're organizing, that we're talking to voters, that we are doing things differently so that we can get the attention of the national dollars to be flowing back into the South. Otherwise, we're in big trouble for the foreseeable future, not only here in Florida, but across the country. The other conversation that I just want to put out there for your viewers is we're having a real conversation about opening up our primaries to those independents, Janae, that you were talking about earlier, because so many of our typical base, we know that more and more Black and brown men especially are going into the NPA space. A lot more of our youth are going into the independent space. And if we are having our candidates only talking to them after an August primary, we are losing a lot of trust and a lot of opportunity to build a party that is reflective of a majority of people here in our state. You can't do that if you're left out 1/3 of our demographic.
Where was the money spent? That's alarming to hear that less than 9 million came to the state of Florida. Like, where was that?
The rest of the battlegrounds.
Battleground states
and consultants. They made a whole crap load of money. That national consultants who make I won't curse on your show, made a lot of money. But that it went to the battlegrounds because they felt that it's a battleground win, which were 6 states at the end of the day. We got all those dollars.
That's the frustration, because I follow and I watch Roland Martin, and he was talking from a national perspective about the amount of money that was spent with Black-owned media nationally from the Harris campaign. And the conversation, I'm a member of BOMA, the Black-owned Media Alliance. We talk about like the consultants and the agencies and the gatekeepers, so to speak, on who dishes out resources. And we're here every day speaking, we're begging for pennies, and to hear that $2.5 billion went through that campaign and we lost racist the way we did, like, to me, that just shows that it wasn't spent properly, of course, but also to me, for the Democratic Party to talk about being the party of the people and the way that money could not only influence and engage the community, but also help minority businesses, Black-owned businesses who are in the community year-round, every day working, and that they don't, on 2 fronts, they're not effectively reaching the voters, but also 2, you're taking money away from Black-owned businesses, or minority-owned businesses or local businesses. To me, I just feel like it's a contradiction on what you stand for. Like, how can you say we want to engage you, we want your vote, but we're going to make millionaires out of people who consult for these campaigns? Like, there's a conflict there. And honestly, Nikki, that's something that not only like people like me and Papa Keith know, but the voters and residents see that too. So when you see the Dems coming now, it's like, okay, girl, like, here you go with the same old thing, but we tell y'all what we need. And here's the other thing too, because there's only so much you can do as the chair. What can people do who are registered voters, or if they're registered Democrats? Like, is that something that Florida Democratic voters, do they need to voice concerns nationally? Do we need to go to conventions or meetings? Like, because it seems like what do we need to do to get activated to help you do, a better job at reaching us or helping us get resources here? Like, is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you all can do. You know, one is getting involved in the local. One, very simple, is getting involved in the local, you know, party, being more vocal, being more present. Again, representation matters, showing up and being part of committees, being part of things, forcing to make sure that no community is getting left behind. And so, you know, that is important to be showing up. And again, you can be doing phone banking, door knocking, showing up at these things. But yeah, utilizing your platforms, whether it is state or local or federal platforms. And I got onto Roland. I don't even know how many times I've been on Roland's show in studio. Actually, it was in studio when Donna Deegan won her election. I didn't even know that she had won. And we're having this conversation. And I go outside and I see my phone and I'm yelling in Washington, D.C. in the middle of the street. But you know, Roland and I talk about this all the time, you know, making sure that there is resources that are going into Black owned media. Because again, people are what's happening nationally and on media, and not only nationally, internationally, people aren't trusting national media. People aren't trusting. And now with the onset of AI, I mean, look what Trump created this week, discussing an AI showing an arrest of Obama in the Oval Office. That was all AI generated. And he thinks it's funny. But, you know, we got to make sure that because people are not trusting national media, because people are second guessing everything that comes in. I barely watch any of the national media at this point. And so people are looking for their trusted mediums, which are you all, which are people in the community that are having these hard conversations, that are holding people accountable. And so utilizing these platforms to be engaging on the national level, saying, hey, we're still here. And it's really going to be important having those voices out there. It's also, you know, going on to national, you know, media outlets and saying, hey, y'all forgot about Florida. You know, we're doing the work down here. You know, we're organizing, you know, hear our message and back it up. But the resources have to come south, you know, and I say this all the time too. We have a very robust you know, voter registration program and field program that are all based on volunteers. And the reality is this: we can't volunteer ourselves out of this problem. It is just not humanly possible. And so we're going to need paid programming. We're going to need all of those things. And so us doing things together will bring the dollars in, but us walking away and not leaning in, doesn't help. So, and sometimes it's going to be, you all are, you know, people are right. You know, people have been left behind. There are communities that haven't seen democratic representation and engagement. But if we walk away, then it's not making lives better either. And so it's going to be asking people to lean back in and saying, look, I've been here before. I got to trust that I have to keep showing up, because if I walk away, nothing's going to get fixed.
So the national, I'm like, the National Party hasn't alerted you to say that there are going to be changes in investment into Florida going into the 2026 election, like with the governor's race and the midterms?
Yes and no. So basically, the new DNC chair, Ken Martin, we have developed a pretty strong relationship over the years. He used to be chair of Minnesota and chair of the chairs. And so he has taken my talking points of that 40%. And there's been data now that backs up my arguments that 40% of the population has moved to the South. You can now, and I call donors, which I have about 10 hours of call time every single week, from state donors to national donors. And people are saying, oh, giving up on Florida. You can't. That's not an option. Like, that is legitimately not an option if we want democracy in the future. And if we want to protect people in our communities and stop giving billionaire tax relief and policies that only help literally the top 0.1% of the American population, you can't give up. And so Ken has been having those conversations. But the DNC, and I think that there's a misnomer, the DNC entity of itself doesn't give a lot of dollars across the states. Like that is not how they program. But when they send smoke signals that there's an investment coming to the South, that there is money coming into Florida, then the national chatter with the national donors chatters about Florida and about the South. And then it is my job to capture that chatter, give them a trusted partner in me with programming that backs up why they need to invest. So we have spent a lot of time on that programming and getting eyeballs on what we are trying to do here in Florida. And it's taking a lot of, that's my job. That is my job, is to be on these phone calls, creating prospectus, going out there, pitching Florida to our Florida donors, our national donors. But it's going to take a lot of the chatter across the country to recognize leaving Florida behind is just not an option. And we've been the lab rats of Project 2025 for the last 4 years. Like we warned y'all, like you see what's happening at the national level. It started here. And the messaging that comes from the Republican Party, their think tanks are here. They're experimenting on us here. If you don't stop the crap here, you're going to get it around the rest of the country.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Something I also noticed that a lot of people are not talking about, but I just want to bring it up and just get perspective on it, even from my co-host Janae Tate. With the Democratic Party, I've noticed, like, even especially with the Kamala Harris campaign, it was very like pro-women, pro-homosexual. You know, obviously I don't have a problem with that, but I felt like there wasn't a space for the masculine man within the Democratic Party. I felt because of that, it kind of shoved people over who probably didn't even care for or like Trump, but kind of pushed them over to him based on his message and his bravado. And I would even ask people like, well, name me some manly men that were on the front line for Kamala Harris, you know, and they would have to, it wasn't easy. Plies maybe as a Tampa rapper was one that stood out. But other than that, it was very difficult to kind of wrap your head around that. But it was the opposite for Trump, right? You've seen all these masculine men come out and all this, you know, kind of come out on his behalf, because I felt like, you know, masculine men, which I would consider myself one too, didn't have a space to be comfortable in the Democratic Party, because it just seems like it was just super pro-women and super pro-homosexual versus masculine men.
Yep.
What would you think?
LGBTQIA.
Sorry, you know, I'm sorry.
You're right. 100%. I mean, I heard it as I crisscrossed the state. I heard it nationally. That, you know, we don't have a lot. I mean, even look at, you know, even in our electeds, you know, who are here in the state of Florida, from our House to our Senate to our congressionals, we don't have a lot of, you know, I hate using the word masculine men,
right.
per se, you know, and so that is a big problem. And I think that because, like what I was saying earlier in the show, you know, because we focus so much on, and not here in Florida, and I think this is a really big distinction. Here in Florida, we didn't do that. You know, we were very focused on it outside of abortion, you know, which, you know, really crosses over into healthcare space and it impacts everybody. It takes two to tango. And certainly it, you know, but the messaging even on it, you know, that, you know, men for choice was still a little bit, you know, was trying to get into that space on trying to make sure that people understood that this isn't just a female issue. You know, this isn't just a woman's issue, that again, it takes two to tango here. And it is men who have just as much at stake for access to these, you know, life-saving, you know, procedures. But for us in Florida, it was affordability and accountability were our issues. But again, when you've got less than $9 million to share that message, it really hurts us here in Florida because we didn't have the real resources to cut through that here in our state. But as a whole, but nationally, yeah, it was a problem. It was a big problem. And I don't have all the answers of how to solve it by any stretch of the imagination, but that's why we're having these conversations and why I am on what we're calling a front porch swing, where I am crisscrossing the state, going into red and rural areas, having those conversations and listening more to those in those communities who feel like, to your point, that they have been left behind, that there was no place for them, and having those conversations and making sure that there's policies. It's the same reason why we lost a lot of our union members. I mean, the unions have been a strong backbone of the Democratic Party. And I was just in Tampa Bay area last week with a bunch of our union members from IBEW, AFL-CIO, and 50% of their membership now are Republicans. Wow. And not so much because we don't have good union policies, but because of that culture switch that has happened, that we've lost a lot. And so we got to go back into those spaces, having trusted voices in those spaces, to start kind of pulling people back. And I think part of it too is that we lost our trust in our working class and our middle class, and which is so much where a lot of the masculinity workers are in those spaces, and we weren't talking to them. We weren't listening to them for sure. And I think that that's how we have to build back this party, is making sure that they feel seen in this party and that they have a true seat at the table.
Listen, Nikki, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. I have some more questions, but I guess I'll save them
for part two. We can do that for part two.
Because honestly, Nikki, I think there needs to be another conversation. One, because you mentioned something, you said how the dollars flowed down from the DNC. And so you said it wasn't like a direct, like they cut a check for you. It's like a kind of like a bat signal goes out to donors to invest in Florida. So people need to understand that. And I think we need to have a conversation on to what are the potential races in Florida that can be flipped to go blue. And people need to understand like how to focus and how to build grassroots efforts towards that. So I know that could take us down a whole nother rabbit hole.
And the other thing we didn't get a chance to do too, that I would really love to revisit an interview with you, Nikki, is just to get a little bit of your background and understand your journey. Because I know that your journey will inspire so many other people to get involved. And, so I know we didn't have the time to do it today because we had so much that we covered that were really important, but I would really like to dig into like, how you got to where you are today, and that journey. So you owe us another date.
Yeah, I'm here. I can do this once a month. I mean, like whatever works. I'm a pretty open book, and I think that I am, for the most part, pretty practical on my approaches to all of this and to issues. And I think the more we are having these conversations and people can stop looking at the quick clicks of what they think that a Democrat is or what we stand for or what the Republicans tell people what we stand for. The more conversations that we can have and the more your listeners can give us feedback and be engaged, I'm all in.
Say less, because the 2026 we will be back again, but we'll be having more conversations around election. So we definitely love your voice added to that.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, Nikki, is there maybe a website that people can go to get more information, how they could donate and how we can assist you?
Absolutely.
Social media handles as well.
Very easy. Well, first of all, I'm on every handle. I'm on Spoutable. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You name it, we're on it, and FDP is too. So you can go onto our website, which is floridadems.org is the website. But I mentioned something in the show about opening up our primaries. I want to hear from your people, for the people that are listening. And so we created an email, openprimary@floridadems.org. If you've got a thought, if you've got an opinion, let us know. We're hopefully to bring this to a conversation with our state party in the very near future, and want to make sure that as many voices come into us as possible so that we can kind of share where the sentiment is. 80% of the American people don't like closed primaries. We are one of 11 states that does it this way. I think there's a constitutional question of, that we are really suppressing a lot of voices, First Amendment rights for 1/3 of our state. So I'm all in, but certainly I don't live on an island, and this is a democracy. So I want to make sure that we're hearing from as many voices as possible.
Oh, definitely. I would love to push that out. So I'll get that information if it's like a form or something that we could share on our platforms.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yay. This is dope. Thank you, Nikki. You're a wealth
you.
of knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
And we'll be back.
Man. TK, you're muted.
That interview. Am I good now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. Yeah, you killed that one though. I ain't gonna lie. I was watching on my big TV. My big screen, not my big TV. Sorry, that sounded bad.
No, I think we both did a great job because your question about honestly asking about the black male, the masculine, I guess macho, or actually the straight male, vote, and how that has been neglected, so to speak, with the Democratic Party. I'm glad you went there. And then, I had to ask about the Robert Dempster situation because
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to a guy, Robert. He had his
yes.
chance to talk about his thing. I'm sure he's going to want to circle back, though, after hearing what Nikki had to
The
say.
homegirl said, you want to know yourself.
Right. I'm sure Robert going to want to circle back, but, it's all good, man. That's our guy, same way. But yeah, and the comments, man. Shout out to you guys. Denzel was going in, and Mike were going in. Yeah,
K-Locks.
yeah. We really appreciate that, and those comments. Even with this one, we weren't able to ask some of the comments live because that was a pre-record. But usually, like Janae said, we're gonna try to do most of our show, or if all of them, if for that matter, live. So that way, when you do comment, we're able to ask it. But just know, even some of your comments fuel us for the next podcast as well.
Sure.
So it's things that I still will grab from it and then say, oh, maybe I could ask this next guest,
Yeah. And I saw on another platform, like there was a question that I think Mike put on the promo item, that he asked about like the spending and who's up next and who's on the bench. And she somewhat got into it, but I think we could have definitely pinned her on some of that. And then also too, Denzel asked about like, what are the 12 counties? And I think I asked it at the end. I'm like, we ran out of time, but I was like, where do we need to be focusing, and what's the opportunities where we can win a race? Like, how do we break that down to be like, okay, Pinellas County has this race and we need this amount of voters to win, or, Broward County has this race, Miami-Dade County has this one. And then also too, something came up about the culture wars within the education, the political space of education and elected officials, and how that has become like a Republican versus Democrat situation, and how that's affecting, our public education. So a lot of questions came in after the fact that I'm like, if we have Nikki back, I definitely want to like, get some answers for, because I personally want to know as well. PK, I want to ask you this. After the interview, do you feel more assured about the Democratic Party's future in Florida, or do you feel like it's more of the same?
More of the same. I don't feel any, because, and you know why too? Because talking to her, I don't even think, it's her job to be optimistic, and I get it. And she's the leader of the Florida Democratic Party. But even in speaking to her, you can hear some of the disappointment that she has, and I like the fact that she was kind of like shitting on the DNC a little bit, saying like, yo, what the hell? I thought it was just a billy that was raised, and she corrected me saying, nah, how about 2.5 billion? And, and then we started talking about how that money was appropriated and how, next to none of it came down to South Florida. And she was tight about that. So I was glad to see that too, because, if you just, I feel like how the Dems usually work, well, how both parties work is that, like, if from the top, if they say this is what it is, okay, everybody just gets in line and nobody really kind of like, pokes and says, nah, that ain't right, So I felt that was her moment of saying, yo, that ain't right. So, but just in a general sense, I don't feel like, I think I said to my Dems that, and this may sound crazy, let Trump do what he do. Let Trump do what he do because like, it's just life, right? Like our bodies repair themselves. Things are just going to work themselves out. there's just going to be one thing that's just going to be too much, or this or that, and then it's going to be the thing that pushes people over and get people involved. Because part of the problem, and I'm telling you as a person who actually ran in a campaign, that to know that only 7% of people coming out to vote in a local election, like, you're the problem too. Like, you know,
Exactly.
these elected officials and they can't do it all. Nikki can't do it all. Yo, you know what I mean? So I think the people need something really desperate to happen for them to be, to really feel that sense of like, nah, I got to get engaged. You know what I mean? And then maybe the outcome of that would cause the tsunami that we need.
But here's the thing. And so now after that conversation with Nikki, and I still feel that way, we have to be more engaged and take some accountability and ownership in our civic engagement as the people, as the voters. However, $2.5 billion came through a campaign, and it was a red bloodbath across the country.
You wanted a sound effect? Hold on.
Give me something. I'm sorry. The engagement and the jolt that you can give and excitement that you could have given the people. What's up, Rick Party? Hey,
Rick Party in the building.
Yes. Sorry, y'all know that's like a radio god right there.
Legend.
Yeah, legend. So sorry that threw me off, but hey, so the fact of that much money coming through the party, and they didn't do what they needed to do to win. And to her point, I mean, here's the thing: Nikki kind of pulled back the curtain and said these consultants became millionaires. The 2.5 billion came. They barely spent anything in Florida. And to Denzel's point, like he made earlier, he talked about the Obama election in the comments. Florida used to be a battleground state, so you cannot tell me that it's not a possibility for us to still be back in play. The thing that I wanted to get from her, and I don't know if this is, something maybe she didn't want to go into detail in a public platform, but I'm like, okay, Nikki, you feel like they neglecting you too on the national level, then you need to activate us down here. You need to tell us, yo, they ain't letting me do this. So y'all need to show them why they need to invest in Florida. Let us know what that looks like. Give us some strategies. Like I said, if you broke it down race by race, county by county, district by district, hey, this is what we need to do to win. If people had that more tangible information, then I think you will see a difference. Also, too, she talked about BOMA. She talked about us, Black-owned media, independent media. If they got to do a real investment into the places and the influencers and the spaces that Black people are, that the youth voters are, like, if you don't do a real investment and not some corny-ish, not no Meg Thee Stallion, twerk off. And like Mike said, they do them in echo chambers, meaning they do them in places where their votes are already they're going to gain votes anyway. I mean, get the votes anyway.
Preaching to the choir.
You're preaching to the choir. Exactly. So if they don't start like figuring out ways to do this, and I think Denzel said in the chat, he's like, they have to decentralize their messaging. You can't go to TV. You can't go to the big three networks anymore. The big three, radio stations. Like, you have to break down that money and speak individually, because people are going to YouTube, they're going to social media, they're coming to podcasts, they're going to individual people to get information. And if you're not going into those spaces and talking directly to those people, you're going to miss a lot of voters, and they're going to feel like they're not being engaged. So,
well, that's another problem too, that probably is for another time, but they're not even engaging our candidates. So I watched that, even, with Willis Howard running for the SEO seat. Am I saying that right?
No, supervisor of elections.
Supervisor of SOE seat, right? He didn't get any support. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, and then you've seen what happened now, because there was nothing to really push us down here. Every candidate that Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Carver was supporting got rolled over by Republicans. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I was even saying to Nikki, like, yo, it's a domino effect. Like,
Hmm.
you think you hurting us, you hurting yourself. You hurting like so many other things when you abandon Florida, like the way you did. You know what I mean? And it's a crime. It's like suicide. And
I
it's
agree with
sad.
Mike. He said no year-round engagement either. You can't just show up when it's election time. I Here's the like I would love to know because clearly, like Nikki said, she's fighting for resources and funding and infrastructure to be built or rebuilt in Florida because I feel like we had it with Obama. However, Obama, I feel like that was a I feel like Obama was a special case, and what I've heard from other political um consultants and people in that space is they said that the Obamas kind of rebelled against the machine of the Democrats. And they were like, we come
Mm,
from this grassroots effort. We're going to run a grassroots campaign. And you saw the difference. Like you literally saw the difference on how they ran their campaign and how they were able to win a state like Florida because they realized you have to get in deep into the pockets of the communities because the Democratic Party is such a big tent. You can't do a broad wide swiping messaging. You have to go in what you say in Pinellas you can't say it in Miami-Dade County, can't say it in Hillsborough, can't say in Tallahassee, and all like you can't do that. So it seemed like they understood it. And to me, I was like, they had a recipe for success. So why not continue to do what the Obamas did when the next election came around? Like I just sometimes it feels like the Democrats want to lose. Sometimes it
yeah.
feels like they're on the other side of whatever the Republican Party is doing to like keep us as the people in this this habitual state of like loss and not having the things that we need because it's
Well,
almost
that
like
what well
it
that's going
feels
to
intentional
continue.
to me at this
That's going to
point.
continue to happen, Janae, when you give jobs to your friends versus people who are best for the job. And I feel that that's what I see happening a lot. Like, it's always this kind of hookup thing. Like that the person you're hooking up is not the best person for the job. So,
That part.
it's going to be this constant cycle and it needs to be broken. And I think to your point of even bringing up Obama and the grassroots, he broke that cycle in that regard. And they were like, oh, snap. All right, let's go with it. And we see their reputation with that just go with it kind of attitude because the same thing happened with Kamala. It's like, oh, well, this ain't working out with Biden. All right, let's just go with it. Instead of like, no, man, how about you just like start from scratch and like let's just try to rebuild this, you know what I mean, and rebuild it with some structure. It's going to take a few years. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but at least even from now, so you could be ready for like 30 or 20, you know what I'm saying?
Like start. Here's the thing: the Republicans. Do we not understand the Project 2025? They were working on that for 10 years ago. Like they so deep. Like the planning when Obama won and the way they went and executed that plan, I don't even understand why the Dems are not even on that same energy. I hope I'm hoping that, like you said, with Trump tearing down the house of what our democracy is, that they really wake up. I also too think that I hope that people wake up and that I hope a multi-party um a country emerges out of this or electorate. Like I hope because I this thing this two party situation ain't really working. Like to me, I feel like whoever the best candidate is, regardless of party affiliation, we should be voting for them because think sometimes people get so bogged down into that BS too that it becomes like a issue. Like, say for example, there's a Republican candidate that I identify with, and they're meeting the needs for me. It becomes almost like I feel weird even voting for them because of what you stand for. And it became so polarizing on certain issues that you almost feel like, dang, if I vote for Republican, I'm kind of voting for white supremacy and racism because this is what they're standing for when there's just really no third party that if you're in the middle, if you stand in between, because sometimes people ain't with all that extreme stuff from the Democratic Party. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not even
we don't look at people, we look at party,
yeah, and
you
here's the
know?
thing, and to all my LGBTQIA people, this is not a hit at y'all. This is something that I've had a conversation with parents when they were talking about like educating kids about the gay, the trans, the that experience, and they're like, I do think it should be up to the parents for a certain age. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, and that's something that the Dems were pushing, and then even the bathrooms. And here's the thing: I've heard trans people say, "We ain't even want y'all pushing that." What y'all there? Something that T.S. Madison said. She was like, "What do you think we was going to the bathroom at before? Where do you think we were going?"
Yeah.
So who's
Well, that
asking us?
to me that was Obama's whole push. So
Mm,
I gave him that because I didn't feel he did enough for us. I felt like that was his push, and that was his lane, and maybe that's what helped him to win. Too. You know what I mean? Strategy. It's the way you look at things, and you know what I mean, and perception. But that was definitely Obama's thing.
mm.
Hmm.
Sure. Well, somebody got it. Wait, I'm looking at some of these comments. He actually had one because he walked the state and did bus tours. Do it. Gotcha. Florida was under Rubio and legislative. Think about. Oh, I'm just saying it like Denzel's like spitting out stuff. So I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
it was something that we needed to tap into. But yeah, PK, like I just feel like there's no moderate party right now. It's just like you got to be
One
all in
extreme
on
or the other.
one, yeah, one extreme or the other. I do think there's an opportunity for the Democratic Party to reemerge and reinvent itself in this space of where the Republicans are, especially too with so many Republican voters disenfranchised and upset with what Trump is doing to the economy, with jobs, with they're like, this ain't what we voted for. Him going to war. It's like this is not what we asked for. So I'm like, what are y'all doing? You got an opportunity to gain these people and actually be the party of the people. So I'm gonna just see if they, stick to it. But I will give Nikki this. I saw personally what she did for the Black Owned Media Alliance. It now makes sense. And I mean, I'm just gonna say they probably ain't gonna like it, but it's not a bad thing. It's more so a media buy came in like 2 weeks before the general election. And
Mm.
now I understand why it came in like that and why Nikki was like, let me do something I wanted because she was fighting for pennies. And so she
Right.
came in with, so it's like, this is what we got. Let us do something. And so I actually appreciate her for doing that, like in the 11th hour in her like investment in local Black owned media here in South Florida. But it makes sense now why that buy played out the way it did, because we were all like 2 weeks before, what are we, who are we gonna we were like, we'll do a push, but we have been begging since the earlier that year. And even starting late the year before, we're like, we have not been able to reach anybody. So very interesting, but I'm hoping that I would love to have just like a even one-off conversation like, Nikki, what do you need from the people to empower you to get the National Democratic Party to pay attention to us? Like,
Right. Because you did ask her that about like, just get helping, and she mentioned, volunteers and getting people back involved. But in terms of the national, yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah,
You
like
know?
if it has to look, and like you said, to your point about support of local candidates, it starts there. Like, cause here's the thing: if we started seeing a blue wave of local races from county, wherever there is a party affiliation to a race, but if you saw that on the county level, on the state level, and it's like, okay, we're making some momentum. Then when it comes down to the national races or a gubernatorial race, now you have like people feeling more hope and feeling like they could get something done. You got to give them some wins. Like if
Yeah.
everything is losing down the ballot, you just feel defeated as a voter. You got to you got to give the people something. And I feel like they need to have some real strategies, some deep grassroots strategies to make some changes. And I do think investing in local people and having them be kind of like the influencers, like to me, I feel like the Democratic Party in Florida needs like some mini Jasmine Crockett, so to speak. Like
Mm.
who's that Jasmine Crockett for South Florida? Who's that Jasmine Crockett for Panhandle? Who's that Jasmine Crockett for the Central West? You get what I'm saying? Like, who is that? Like, I don't know. I don't know who they're exalting for these different areas and for different groups. And
I have no comment for that one.
oh, I just thought about it, but I ain't even finna there are people, I just feel like they don't speak to every group.
Right.
And it has to be more focused and segmented. It just has to be.
That part. Well, this was
I
good.
almost said something. I was like,
That's why I had to pump my brakes. Um, Janae, let everybody know about the live show,
oh
our
yeah, yeah,
final
yeah.
show.
Y'all, Pull up on August 6th at 8 p.m. at Duce Lounge in Pembroke Pines. Shout out to our producer with the information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Derica. Guys, you guys do not want to miss this. It's going to be an amazing conversation live in person. You'll be able to order food and drink, so you know it's going to be a vibe. And also, too, we're going to have amazing celebrity guests, and we are talking about the state of the Miami music industry. So y'all know we do our politics talk, but we also do social issues and culture conversations as well. So this is our way to have that cultural conversation. And I think too, there's even some overlap here because of how Miami's, political economic infrastructure is and why our music industry is just so raggedy. I want to know from some of these leaders. And PK, you're a part of that conversation too. You'll be on both sides of it because of your role in radio. I
Yeah.
want to know why the Miami music scene is so raggedy right now.
It was
We
so
should be
bad.
like Atlanta.
It
We
was
should
so
be like
bad. We were
what?
looking to recruit some female, and we were like scratching our heads trying to figure out who we can bring on the panel. It was just that bad. That's why everything with South Florida, and love them to death, it just seems like it's Trick and Trina, Ross, Trick and Trina. You know what I mean? But there's so much more, and there's so many people that need opportunities, and so we want to kind of crack that code and see what's up. And we have some heavy hitters already booked, so you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think some of the people that we have on, I think we're kind of we could announce it next week on next episode, but to give them a little bit of give them something to look forward to. But there was an infrastructure built with like Slip and Slide, Pole Boy, these type of record companies. Even Cash Money was doing investment down here, and I'm like, what happened? And some of these people who are going to be coming to the show, I feel like it give us some insight on that.
That part, for real. Make sure y'all follow and definitely subscribe to High Low News, for sure. Make sure y'all follow that podcast. Subscribe to it, please. The likes. We trying to get our numbers up so we can eat. And make sure you also follow Just Vote.
Period.
Just Vote. Period. All right. For real. And we'll see you out in the streets. We've been doing some like nice combinations. What's the next thing we had? The Miramar?
Yeah, we're at the Miramar High School Alumni Picnic. So we'll be out there on August 3rd, is it? Yeah, so you guys could check us out. Just Vote Period Tent. We'll have a photo booth and we'll have a podcast set. We do our stuff together in tandem. So if you see one, now you're gonna see the other. So y'all make sure y'all pull up on us at the Miramar High School all alumni, all classes alumni picnic.
All right, and we thank you so much for the support from my family and friends. Michael, congratulations. I heard the election is back on. That's good. And thank you for everybody who commented and just put energy into our podcast. We really appreciate it. We're building. We're in our third series. We're going to take a break after our last series, after that live show for like about a month or so. We come back the second week in September. We do another 8 shows, and that's how it kind of operates. All right. So y'all have a great rest of your night. We love you.
Thank y'all. PK, I hope you feel better, friend.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm under the weather, man, but I don't know. These good conversations I was able to pull through, so I'm gonna go rest up now. All right,
y'all
but I
put some
appreciate
hands in the chat for PK. Good night, y'all.